Rain hammered the windows. A silencer clicked into place, and a waitress rewrote destiny with a blue pen. The steakhouse glowed with false luxury, while death moved quietly through the kitchen shadows. Julian Thorne sat like a man carved from stone, unaware that betrayal had already entered the room and taken a seat across from him. Then Elena stepped forward, laid down the check, and circled the words that would split the night in two. A second later, the table exploded, the bullets came, and the woman serving dinner became the woman running through gunfire beside a fallen king.
Heels. She had a 3-second choice, him or her. And what happened next wasn't some panicked flail for survival or a corny hero moment from a movie. Nah, the answer came scribbled on a restaurant receipt with a ballpoint pen. Heels. When Elena dropped that bill in front of Vittorio, it wasn't just about the money. It was a damn prophecy laid out in 3 little circles around 3 boring words. Gunman. Wrong. Exit. It just sat there, right between them, heels, while her heart was trying to punch its way out of her chest. Vittorio, dude, was a statue. Not a single twitch, not even a stutter in his breathing. Just his hand, moving slow and steady, down toward his waist. This is the story of how a waitress, heels, armed with nothing but a lifetime of spotting trouble in men's eyes, dismantled an execution, saved a king, and got drafted into his war. Heels. The rain in Seattle is a joke. It doesn't clean anything. It just pushes the grime around. But inside the Velvet Heart Steakhouse, the storm was just background noise, a little tap dance on the glass, separating the city's wolves from their sheep. Heels. Elena tugged at her apron, which felt more like a damn cage with every passing minute. 11:45 p.m. The pain in her feet was just a background hum she'd tuned out ages ago. 3 years she'd worked this joint, heels, long enough to know the guys at these tables weren't just buying a $50 steak. They were buying silence. They were leasing the shadows in the corners, heels. They were renting the absolute complicity of people like her, ghosts who were paid to show up with wine and then just disappear, heels. But Elena was never actually good at disappearing. She was, however, a master at pretending to, which is a whole different skill set, heels. Growing up with a dad who'd bet on a fly crawling up a wall taught her how to read a room for tripwires before she even stepped inside. She got fluent in the tiny tells of a lie, the way a guy shifts his weight before he swings, heels, the weird metallic smell of pure fear, and tonight Table 4 smelled like a lightning storm in leather that cost more than some dude's life. Vittorio Thorne was sitting with his back to the wall, the default setting for a man who lives with ghosts, heels. The guy was all sharp angles and deep shadows, wearing a suit that was worth more than Elena's entire existence. To the public, he was a logistics guy. To the underworld, he was the Thorne Syndicate, heels. He had that kind of brutal good looks that just sucks the air out of a room, a face like it was cut from stone, eyes the color of old whiskey, and a stillness that was way scarier than any loudmouth thug. Across from him sat some younger guy, a newbie, heels, who was basically a walking bundle of nerves, fiddling with his tie, glancing at the kitchen, again. Elena drifted between tables with the water pitcher, the fancy carpet swallowing her footsteps. As she got close to table 4, heels, she dropped her eyes like the perfect little servant, but her senses were cranked to 11, soaking up every detail. And of a throat clearing. "The channels are secure, Vittorio," the young dude said, his voice cracking on the name, heels. "We just need the signature for the transfer." Vittorio's answer was dead silence. He just cut his steak, the knife moving like a surgeon's scalpel. Heels. "You're sweating, Marcus. The room is 68 degrees. A straight-up fact, not a question. It's the pressure. The Russians are being pushy." Elena starts pouring. And right there, in the warped reflection on the water hitting the glass, heels, she sees the dark window behind Marcus's head. Outside, a street lamp flickers on over a black van parked where it shouldn't be. But that's not what turns her blood to ice. It's the reflection of the hallway behind her, the one Vittorio can't see. Heels. The kitchen door is cracked open, and a man is standing in the shadows. Not a cook. He's got a dark jacket on, and he's twisting a suppressor onto the end of a pistol. Heels. Elena's hand didn't even twitch. Spilling that water would be like signing her own death certificate. Screaming? Same deal. The guy in the kitchen was waiting for a signal. Marcus, a total mess, checks his watch. 3 seconds. Heels. He shoots a look at the kitchen entrance. 2. Elena glides back to the service station, her brain going so fast the room feels it's in slow motion. She prints the check for table 4. 1 slip of paper, 1 ribeye, 1 Pinot Noir. Heels. One sparkling water, one side of truffle fries. A totally normal bill for a seriously violent ending. She grabs her pen, the tip just hovering over the paper. Writing a note is too obvious. Marcus would see it. It had to be a whisper, feels. Something only a guy like Vittorio, a guy hardwired to find the glitch in any system, would ever catch, feels. The fine print, buried way down at the bottom. The usual corporate nonsense. Thank you for your patronage. Management not responsible for lost items. If a deal is unsatisfactory, please speak to staff. If something has gone wrong, notify us immediately, feels. Please find the nearest exit in case of emergency. Gunman policy applies to all patrons. A total mess of legal jargon, but the words were right there. Elena's pen came down. 3 sharp, clean circles in blue ink. Gunman. Wrong. Exit. Feels. She walked back to the table. Marcus was now reaching inside his jacket for paperwork or for his own piece. Your check, Mr. Thorne, Elena said, her voice totally flat and steady. Feels. She put the little leather book down in front of Vittorio, leaving it open so the pen was lying right across her circled words. She didn't look him in the eye. She was staring holes into Marcus. Can I get you anything else, sir? You look a little flushed. Feels. The diversion worked. Marcus looked up totally annoyed. No leave. In that 1 second, Vittorio's eyes dropped to the receipt. Elena watched his face. No shock. No panic. Just this deep, terrifying focus. He saw the words. In less than a heartbeat, feels. He must have mapped the whole room in his head. He didn't look for the threat. He looked at Elena, and for just a split second, that cold boss mask was gone. In its place, confusion, then a flash of ice-cold calculation, feels, followed by a decision that made her skin crawl. He started to reach for his wallet, but his hand went right past it, dipping low toward his hip, feels. Marcus, Vittorio said, his voice a low growl. You didn't sign. What? Marcus glanced down, and Vittorio kicked the table. The huge slab of wood flipped up like it was made of paper. In one fluid, insane move, feels. Vittorio launched himself sideways, not running from the threat, but straight at Elena. Thwip! Thwip! 2 shots from the silenced pistol ripped through the booth's leather, right where his heart had been a second ago. The sound was all wrong. This soft, feels, sick little cough, but the damage was real. Wood splinters everywhere. An iron hand clamped down on Elena's wrist. Feels. He yanked her off her feet, dragging her behind the flipped table as a third bullet made the wine glass she'd just filled explode into 1,000 pieces. Stay down, Vittorio ordered, a silver pistol suddenly appearing in his hand. The CEO was gone. Feels. A killer was in his place. Marcus scrambled back from the chaos, yelling, "Get him, now!" The dude from the kitchen stormed into the dining room, his gun just spitting fire in their direction. The other customers, who'd been frozen, feels, finally started screaming. The restaurant's chill vibe was shredded by pure animal panic. Vittorio popped up from cover, fired twice, and dropped back down. The first bullet spun Marcus around with a busted shoulder. Feels. The second sent the gunman stumbling back to the kitchen. Feels. The rear exit, Vittorio barked, his eyes locked on hers, pupils blown wide with adrenaline. Is it clear? Yes, Elena choked out, her ears ringing like crazy. Pantry goes to the delivery alley. Go, now. I can't just— You're in this now, Elena. Feels. He must read her damn name tag. They saw you. They saw you warn me. Stay here and you're a loose end they have to clean up. Move. The truth of his words hit her like a punch to the gut. She'd made a move. She wasn't a ghost anymore. Feels. She was now part of the story. She spun across the floor, broken glass digging into her hands. Vittorio moved with her, using his body as a damn shield, while he squeezed off one last shot toward the kitchen to give them cover. Feels. They slammed through the swinging doors and into the kitchen. The kitchen crew was just standing there, paralyzed, trapped in a silent scream. Out! Everybody out! Vittorio roared. They bolted past the blasting heat of the stoves. Feels. The air thick with the smell of food and fear. Elena slammed her whole body against the heavy steel door of the loading bay, forcing it open. The cold night air was like a slap in the face. The rain was pouring down. My car, Vittorio yelled. Feels. Pointing to a slick black sedan idling in the alley. Get in. I am not getting in a car with a gangster, Elena screamed back, stumbling away from him. The adrenaline was making her brave and stupid. I was trying to stop a murder, not sign up for one. Feels. Vittorio grabbed her arm. Feels. The dude's grip wasn't meant to break bones, but it was a steel trap, basically screaming there was no way out. He gives the dark alley a quick scan. Suddenly, tires screech, cutting through the storm. That van from across the street? Feels. It's now coming at them full throttle. You see those lights? Julian hisses, rain plastering his hair to his face. That's the second team. The cleaners, you saved my damn life, but if you stay, they'll skin you alive for what you know. Get in the car, feels. Just then, a submachine gun erupts from the alleyway. A spray of bullets chews up the brick wall, missing Elena's head by inches. Yeah, her list of options just hit zero. She flings herself into the car as Julian pulls a movie stunt vault over the hood, feels. Hits the driver's seat and the engine screams bloody murder, feels. That engine roar isn't just noise. It's a full-blown declaration of war. Right now, Julian is the definition of controlled chaos, one hand manhandling the wheel against the laws of physics, the other conducting a symphony of automatic gunfire. Feels. Smashing into the dumpster is a nasty metal-on-metal shriek that ends with the sedan getting launched out of the alley like a cannonball. They become a high-speed blur against the city lights. Inside, Elena is just pure human fragility, feels. Her knuckles white on the dash, a desperate attempt to hold on while her world flips upside down. They bleed into Seattle traffic like a ghost ship where red lights are just festive suggestions. Julian, though, feels, has his eyes glued to the past in the rearview mirror. Are they following? Elena's voice is literally vibrating with fear. One car. SUV. Armored, Julian replies, his tone flat as a corpse's heartbeat. This guy is way too comfortable with violence. Feels. This guy, Julian, is basically running on muscle memory designed for complete catastrophe. His hand grabs the burner phone in the console not like a device, but like an extra limb he was born with. Feels. The voice that crackles out delivers a eulogy in 3 words, code black at the velvet heart. That's the language of total system failure, a phrase that means more than a screw-up. It means betrayal. Marcus. The name just hangs there. Feels. Julian's own diagnosis is delivered with zero emotion, compromised. That's a status that means you need to be erased, vanishing to a place built for ghosts. He's not alone. He's got a civilian. A quick normal thought. And then the ice-cold correction. Feels. The asset. You can see Elena recoil from that word. It's the raw spark of a human being realizing they've just been turned into an object. The call ends, and Julian yanks the wheel, planning to cut off their pursuers just as permanently. Feels. He lets up on the gas, and they glide into the skeleton of an old industrial park, the dashboard glow lighting up Julian's face in shadow and silver. You're not a person right now, Elena. The line is straight-up psychological warfare. Feels. Meant to shred her identity, but it's said with this weird rhythm that hints it's not just cruelty, it's a tactical necessity. You're the only person who saw a betrayal that's about to burn this whole city down. And until it's over, feels. His eyes lock with hers in the dark. You're mine. That's not a request, it's a declaration of total ownership. Elena's brain starts doing the cold math of survival and realizes running is a complete fantasy. She's been contaminated by what she knows. Feels. Her question, where are we going, isn't a question. It's the sound of her giving up. Feels. Know where you know, he says back. The classic line before a trip straight to hell. Someplace the devil himself can't knock us. The clunk of the central locks is the punctuation mark on that sentence, the sound of a cage door slamming shut. For 2 hours, feels. The city literally disappears behind them. The neat grid of Seattle dissolves into the crunch of gravel as they climb into the mountains, into a world with older, scarier rules. A thick, choking fog rolls in, feels, a perfect mirror for the chaos inside Elena's head. Julian is a statue of pure vigilance, his focus absolute, his hand never straying far from his gun. Elena, meanwhile, is practically glued to the door, feeling the toxic adrenaline drain away, feels, leaving a creepy, empty silence in its place. Feels. Trees slide by the window like ancient giants watching them run. Every mile cuts another tie to the world she knew, peeling it away layer by layer. We're here, Julian says, feels. Breaking the silence as he swerves onto a hidden road the night seems to swallow whole. Some invisible signal from their car makes a steel barricade slide back into the ground. Its quiet, smooth hum screaming high-level paranoia. Feels. This isn't some cabin in the woods. It's a monster of brutalist architecture, a jagged chunk of concrete and glass stabbing out from the cliffside like an act of war. It looks cold, unbreakable, and completely, utterly alone. Feels. Julian drives the car straight into the earth, down into an underground garage. Feels. When he kills the engine, the silence that follows is so heavy you can feel it. Get out, he orders. Elena's legs are clumsy with leftover stress, but they obey. She steps out into the sterile buzz of fluorescent lights, and for the first time, feels. Julian really seems to look at her, not as a person, but like a piece of evidence he needs to process. His own suit is a mess, a casualty of the night's violent business. Phone, he says, holding out a hand. Her confusion lasts for about half a second, feels. Give me your phone, Elena, now. He cuts through her silent protest with one single, undeniable fact. You need to stay alive. In his world, a smartphone isn't for staying connected. It's a digital dog collar. Heels. He lays it out for her. Marcus's network is already hunting for her signal, using that phone in her pocket to paint a giant bullseye right over her heart. She hands it over, a shiver running through her as she does. Julian doesn't even hesitate. Heels. One hard stomp of his heel, and the phone shatters with a sharp final crack. Her protest is so normal it's almost insane in this house of horrors. I haven't paid that off yet, Eels. His comeback is dripping with the casual power of a guy who deals in much bigger stakes. I'll buy you a factory, he says, if we live through the week, upstairs. Move, Eels. They ride an elevator up to a living room so huge and empty it feels like a fancy tomb for people who are still breathing. Eels. A massive wall of glass shows them a view of pure, endless blackness. The room is a temple to minimalism, completely stripped of any warmth, life, or history. This is not a home. It's a holding cell with a killer view of the void. Eels. Julian walks straight to a bottle, pours a shot of something amber, and downs it in one go. It's not for pleasure. It's purely functional. And just like that, he changes. The soldier vanishes, and the interrogator steps up. Eels. He points to a single chair sitting in the middle of the massive room, basically a throne of vulnerability. Elena sits. He leans against a desk, taking the pose of a predator who's perfectly comfortable on his own turf. Eels. Who is your handler? The question is a scalpel, trying to dig out the conspiracy he's sure is there. Elena's confusion is so real it's almost disarming. The person who told you to circle those words, he says. Eels. His voice loaded with the cold logic of a world where there are no coincidences. He just can't wrap his head around her doing it on her own. No one, she insists, her voice shaking with a fear that is way more believable than any lie. He lets out this dead, Eels, humorless laugh. A waitress, he argues, doesn't just invent a secret agent warning sign in 10 seconds flat. He even gives it a name, Tradecraft. Is she with the government he pushes or some rival crew? Her answer is pure, Eels, bitter sarcasm, the only weapon she has left. Eels. She stands up, and just like that, the dynamic shifts from predator and prey to something way more complicated. She throws her life story at him like a resume. Her insane awareness isn't some trained skill, Eels. It's scar tissue from a childhood spent with a gambler and a liar for a father. I learned to read the twitches in a man's face before I learned to read a book, she says, every word proof of a life spent dodging emotional landmines. Eels. She breaks down the whole scene at the restaurant. Marcus's tells the busboy's weirdly expensive shoes. I saw the gun, she finishes, her voice getting a new hard edge. Because I'm always looking for one, Eels. Her entire existence has been one long wait for the next disaster, Eels. Julian just watches, his silence a heavy, calculating field of energy. He's scanning her for the tells he's been trained to spot. The frantic pulse in her neck, Eels, the way she's balling her fists. Searching for the lie his instincts are screaming has to be there. But he finds nothing. The programmed suspicion in his eyes just melts away, replaced by a sort of clinical shock. You have a sharp eye, he admits. Eels, and the words taste like he's having to rewrite his entire understanding of the world. Sharper than my head of security. Elena's reply is blunt, a cold-blooded analysis. Your head of security is probably dead. Or he was in on it, Eels. A flicker of pain crosses Julian's face, a tiny wince that confirms her theory just scored a direct hit. He acknowledges she's right and turns away, the horrifying math of a much bigger betrayal starting to sink in. Eels. Julian's brain is working overtime. He's looking at the profile of the accountant Marcus, and he's like, no way this dude had the guts to pull this solo. He needed a backer. Elena, seeing her chance, pushes him. Moretti? And boom, Eels. Julian drops the full name, Dante Moretti, a New York kingpin trying to muscle in on the West Coast. Apparently, Julian getting taken off the board was the main event. He turns to Elena, looking like he's aged a decade in 10 minutes. Eels. You just walked into a war, he tells her. And right now, you're the only one in this room I'm 100% sure isn't here to kill me. He grabs the bloody receipt like it's the Holy Grail. Eels. He spreads the crumpled paper out on the desk. A gunman behind you. Deal gone wrong. Exit now. He looks right at her, his tactical mind trying to figure her out. You could run. You could have just hid. But she didn't. You picked a side. Eels. Elena just shakes her head, not getting his whole kill-or-be-killed logic. I just chose not to let someone get shot. That simple human decency is a completely alien concept to a guy like Julian. In my world, Elena, he says, his voice getting softer, Eels. That is choosing a side, and right then his body finally gives out. A wave of pure agony hits his face, and he has to brace himself on the desk as all the color just vanishes. Elena doesn't miss a thing. You're hurt. Heals. And yup, there it is. A dark growing stain is soaking through his jacket right under the shoulder. He tries to play it off like a complete liar. It's a graze. I'll deal with it. But that's when Elena flips a switch. The damsel in distress act? Gone. Heals. In its place is a woman with total authority. Sit down. Take off the jacket. Hearing her use his first name, sit down, Julian, is a total power move, and it completely shatters the tough guy vibe he's built. And it works. He actually collapses into a chair. Heals. When she asks for a med kit, he just points to the bathroom, admitting it's a full-on trauma kit. This guy's safe house was built expecting exactly this kind of disaster. Heals. The kit is basically a field surgeon's wet dream. Tourniquets, blood-clotting agents, freaking suture needles. She comes back and barks the order again. Julian finally takes off his jacket, and his white shirt underneath is absolutely wrecked. Heals. Just soaked in crimson. Elena whips out shears and starts cutting the fabric away to get a look. It's not a graze. Not even close. It's a nasty trench dug straight through his muscle, deep and bleeding bad. It needs stitches, she says. Heals. Looking pale, but her hands are rock steady. Do it, he grinds out through his teeth. Then the absolute madman grabs a whiskey bottle and pours it straight into the open wound. His entire body seizes up in a silent, agonizing scream. Heals, but he doesn't make a single sound. Heals. A needle, Elena says, her voice shaking and her hands blurring from the trembling. She's about to lose it, but Julian's voice cuts through the panic, a low command telling her to get a grip. He's in agony, but still in total control. Heals. He grabs her wrist. His one good hand is like a hot iron on her skin, forcing her to focus on him and nothing else. Look at me. She does. He locks eyes with her, basically creating a force field of sheer will to pull her back from freaking out. You saved me. Heals. He says, throwing the restaurant shooting back in her face to rebuild her confidence. Do it again. You can see the change in her eyes. The waitress is gone. The woman holding the needle is in charge now. The steel bites into his skin. Heals. And the only sounds are the raging storm outside and Julian's ragged breaths with every single stitch. Heals. Elena stitches him up with this insane laser-like focus she didn't even know she had. 5 stitches, every knot perfect, making a clean dark line on his skin. She cleans it, bandages it. Done. She breathes out. Heals. The bloody needle and thread drop from her fingers, clattering on a tray like a judge's gavel. And that's when she breaks, slumping to the floor like her own strings were just cut. Julian tests the bandage, his face a total stoned mask. He gives a single, Heals, sharp nod. Good. Better than some medics I've known. It's a weird kind of compliment, but it works. He slides a bottle of whiskey over to her. Drink. She immediately pulls back. I don't drink. He's not asking. Tonight, you do. So she does. Heals. The booze burns down her throat, a nasty medicine that finally stops her hands from shaking. Heals. Julian gets up and grabs a clean shirt. He leaves it unbuttoned, the white bandage looking stark against his skin. Taps a hidden keypad, and a whole wall of monitors blinks to life, bathing the room in a cold blue light. Security feeds. Heals. Street cams showing the chaos back at the Velvet Heart. Satellite trackers painting lines all over a world map. What are you doing? Elena asks, her voice all thin as she gets up and walks toward the screens. Tallying the cost, Julian says flatly. Heals. Scanners are going nuts. 3 bodies at the restaurant. They're calling it a gang hit. 3, the word gets stuck in her throat. Marcus is dead. Julian says, all emotion gone from his voice now. My shot. The shooter from the kitchen is dead too. Heals. My shot, he says again, the words echoing in the high-tech room. And a bystander, caught in the crossfire. Elena shuts her eyes tight, a wave of sickness hitting her hard. Oh God, this was not your fault, Julian states. Heals. His tone leaving zero room for argument, basically building a wall around her guilt. Look, he points to a grainy traffic cam shot of a dark street. There's a black van, and sitting behind it is a slick silver sedan. That car, Julian says, zooming in. Heals. Not a common model. Aston Martin repeats. See the rims? Custom. So that car belongs to one man. Elias Thorne. Elena racks her brain but comes up with nothing. A relative? My father's brother, Julian clarifies. Heals. And the temperature in the room instantly drops 10 degrees. My uncle, the one who supposedly retired to a villa in Tuscany 5 years ago. Heals. Why would your uncle try to kill you? Because Julian says, his eyes scanning the feeds with a terrifying predator-like focus, he never wanted to retire. Heals. When my father died, the organization passed to me, not to him. Julian talks about it like it's a stolen kingdom. The old guard thought Elias was a dinosaur. Too reckless. He wanted to get into drugs. I moved us into logistics, tech smuggling, cleaner, heels, and way more money. He's spinning his takeover like it was just good business. He never forgave me. Julian's fist slams the desk, the first crack in his ice-cold exterior. This wasn't Moretti's move. This was a coup from the inside. Elias made a deal. Deals. He serves me up to Moretti. Moretti gets my shipping network, and Elias gets his throne back. He turns to her, his eyes dark. This is worse than I thought. Why? Because Elias knows this place. He helped my father build it. And just as he says it, Eels, a single red light on the console starts to pulse. Eels. A quiet rhythmic chime starts filling the room. Proximity sensor, Sector 4. The perimeter's been breached. Elena feels her lungs lock up. They're here. They weren't looking for us, Julian corrects her. Eels. His voice hitting a chillingly calm note as he pulls a massive assault rifle from a weapons locker. The sound of him chambering around is deafening. They were coming here all along. This was the end game. If the restaurant failed, Eels. They knew this was my fallback spot. He tosses a heavy Kevlar vest at her. Put it on. Julian, I don't know how to use a gun. You don't have to, he says, snapping into full-on protector mode. You just have to live. He moves to the window. Eels, a dark shape against the crazy storm outside. Eels. Kill the lights. Elena scrambles for the switch, throwing them into total darkness. The only light now is from the insane flashes of lightning. How many? She whispers, hiding behind a huge desk that suddenly feels like it's made of cardboard. Eels. Julian lifts a handheld thermal scope to his eye. 2 trucks at the gate, 8 men. Full tactical. The green glow from the scopes makes his face look demonic. These aren't street thugs, Elena. They're pros. Elias buys the best. He glances over at her. Eels. His face impossible to read in the dark. His voice a low, urgent whisper. Listen carefully. In the basement, there's a wine cellar. Behind the racks, you'll find a tunnel. It goes for half a mile and comes out on the beach. Eels. All right, here's the plan. Old boathouse motorboat. You're out, Julian says. But Elena hits him with a hard no. Julian fires back. What part of they're going to hunt us down and send us off a cliff don't you get? My only shot is to hold them off right here. Eels. Buy you 20 minutes. She's totally breaking. You want me to just leave you? He gets right in her face, dead you to have a life. You're not in this. You've got a cat, a job, a tomorrow. Stay here and you die with me. Eels. So we'll make sure of it. And him I was born into this mess, he says, with total finality. And I'll die in it. Dead silence. Then Elena says it again. No. Eels. No, she repeats. And this time there's some steel in her voice that shocks even her. I picked the ad. I brought you here. I'm not running while you stay behind to get yourself killed for me. Then a flash of vulnerability. Besides, she gulps. Eels. I have no idea how to drive a boat. A lightning flash shows Julian's face. He's torn between disbelief and straight-up awe. You are the most impossible woman I have ever met, he says. I work at a steakhouse, Julian. I deal with angry dudes for a living. Eels. Being impossible is basically in the job description. And right on cue, the front window shatters, and a canister rolls in, spewing thick white smoke everywhere. Eels. Gas, Julian yells. Masks under the desk. He shoves a gas mask on her face before getting his own on. The room is already a swirling, choking mess. They're coming in. His voice sounds all muffled and robotic. Stay down. Stay with me. Eels. He shoves a revolver into her hand. It feels heavy, cold, like the end of her normal life. If it's not me coming through that door, he says, you use this. The gun feels alien. Point. Pull the trigger, don't think. Suddenly, the world just explodes. Eels. Bullets shred the doors, wood splinters flying like shrapnel through the smoke. Julian pops up and answers back with his own rifle, total pro. Eels. A scream rips through the chaos from the hallway. Elena curls up smaller under the desk, the whole place sounding like it's being torn apart. Through the thick smoke, she sees it, a shadow peeling away from the wall to her left. A dude in all black, Eels, moving to get the drop on Julian's blind side. He raises a shotgun, aimed right at Julian's back. There was no time to think, no debate. Just the immediate situation. The threat, the guy protecting her and her. She raises the revolver. Eels. Her hands are shaking, but she steadies her wrist on the edge of the desk. Eels. She pulls the trigger. The gun kicks back hard. The shot goes wide, blowing up a vase on a shelf, but the noise was enough. The merc flinches, whipping his head around to the new noise. Julian! Left! She screams, her voice all messed up by the mask. Eels. Julian spins, drops, and locks onto the target in one smooth move, 2 quick shots. The guy drops like a sack of potatoes. Julian's eyes lock with hers through the smoke and plastic. You could feel the intensity. He gives her one sharp nod, acknowledgement, feels. Respect. Reloading, he yells, and then a new sound cuts through the gunfire, a quiet electronic beeping coming from the vents. Julian freezes, his head snapping up. Ventilation system, he says, his voice dropping low. They've hijacked it, feels. They're not just coming in anymore, they're flooding the place. A white tide of smoke consumes the room, then shifts, curdling into a nasty yellow. Nerve gas? Alina's voice is thin, the fear finally closing in. Worse, Julian grunts back, his tone grim. Heals. Anesthetic. Elias doesn't want me dead yet. The masks are completely useless. Julian starts to sway as Pashvalapskal gets too heavy and slips from his hands. Alina, he chokes out, the words slurring. The tunnel, now. Go. Heals. Then he just collapses, like a puppet with its strings cut. Elena feels her own body getting heavy, pulling her to the floor. She tries to crawl to him, but her body just won't listen. And then the front doors are blasted inwards. Through the yellow fog, feels 4 figures in full hazmat gear step inside, moving like robots. Feels. The world was fading out when he showed up, the last thing she saw before everything went black. A ghost in a tailored gray suit, moving like a predator behind his goons, leaning on a cane. His cold eyes scanned over Julian's body before landing on her. Feels. Well, his voice was raspy, like dead leaves blowing on pavement. Dinner is served. In the next second, the floor slammed into her head and the universe winked out. She doesn't just wake up. Feels. Consciousness is slammed back into her with a bucket of ice water to the face. She gasps, her lungs fighting. She tries to move to wipe the water from her eyes, but her hands are zip-tied behind her back, the plastic digging into her wrists. Feels. She's in a cage, literally bolted to a concrete floor in a metal chair. The air smells like rust and salt and old blood, the kind of smell a place has when it's built for taking things apart. You can tell the room is huge by the echoes. High ceilings, feels. Steel warehouse walls, and the creepy rhythmic clanking of some machine in the distance. A damp chill tells her they're near the sea. The port of Tacoma, probably. A voice confirms she's awake. Her vision clears. First, feels, she sees the muscle-bound merc from the hotel, but then she looks past him. 10 feet away, Julian is suspended, not sitting, hanging. His wrists are chained to a hoist, a position designed to rip his tendons. Feels. The shirt she patched up is gone, and his torso is just a canvas of fresh torture. A massive dark bruise is blooming over his ribs. A bandage on his shoulder is leaking fresh blood. Julian, she whispers, the name feeling broken. He forces his head up, feels. His left eye is swollen shut, his lip is split open, but the one good eye he has locks onto hers, and it's burning like a wildfire. Don't talk, he growls, the words thick and painful. Don't give them anything. A new voice slides out of the shadows. Feels. Elias Thorne steps into the light. He looks like an older, rotted version of Julian. If Julian is solid granite built to last, Elias is flint, all sharp edges and cruelty. Feels. He's wearing a perfect charcoal suit, a clean line of order in all the filth. Welcome back to the land of the living, miss. Elias pauses, letting the silence pressure her into giving her name. Elena, she says. My name is Elena. Feels. He says the name like he's tasting it. Alina, a waitress, a nobody. And yet you're the one thing that kept my nephew from ending up in a body bag. A loose thread. He walks over to Julian and presses the tip of his cane right into the fresh gunshot wound. Feels. Julian's whole body goes rigid, a silent scream arching through him, but he doesn't make a stop it, Elena screams. Elias turns, a ghost of a smile on his face. He has an impressive tolerance for pain. It was beaten into him. Feels. My brother forged him into a weapon, but every weapon has a kill switch. Or in this case, a key. Elias pulls out a tablet. So here's the deal, Elena. Since you're part of the family business now, you might as well know what's at stake. Feels. Julian converted the entire Thorne Syndicate fortune, all our cash, contract secrets, into a digital ghost, locked it on a decentralized ledger. Genius. Unbreakable. He taps the screen. Too unbreakable. See, you need 2 things to open the vault. His eye. Feels. A 24-character password that only exists in his head. Without that phrase, the fortune is gone. I can't pay my soldiers. Feels. I can't buy my kingdom back. He gets close to Julian again. That's a physical thing I can take anytime I want. But the password, that he has to give me. Go to hell, Elias. Julian coughs. Feels. Spitting blood and saliva on his uncle's expensive suit. Elias just sighs, like he's so predictable, so tough. He gives a little nod. The big merc steps forward, holding a pair of industrial pliers. We'll start with the fingers, Elias says. Feels. His voice cold and detached. The left hand. He won't be needing it to sign anything. No, Elena cuts in. Wait, look at him. He's already fading. If he goes into shock, that password dies with him. Elias raises a finger and the goon freezes. Heals. The mercenary just stops, dead in his tracks. Elias is now laser-focused on Elena, suddenly way more interested. She's not wrong, Elena pushes, her brain scrambling for any kind of advantage. You said it yourself. 24 characters. Heals. A solid hit to the head, a heart attack. His memory is going to be Swiss cheese. Torture him too much and you're literally just wiping the hard drive. Elias cocks his head, looking at her like a hawk that just found a very chatty mouse. Heals. You know a suspicious amount about trauma for a waitress. I watch a lot of medical shows, she bullshits, and it sounds weak even to her. It's just common sense. You need him functional. True, Elias admits. Heals. But pain has a way of concentrating the mind. Not his mind. Elena snaps back, pointing at Julian. Look at his eyes. He's already checked out. He's not even here anymore. Heals. He's gone. You can take him apart piece by piece, and you'll get jack squat. That's how he was built, right? Julian's eyes flicker over to her, a spark of confusion in his busted-up face. And then it clicks. Her play. Heals. A Hail Mary to take over the whole situation. So Elias says, practically slithering toward Elena, his presence alone feeling like a ton of bricks. If beating on the soldier won't work, maybe we try a different kind of key. He gives a nod. Bring her. Heals. The merc cuts her loose, yanks her up, and dumps her on the floor right in the middle of everything. She's forced to her knees at Julian's feet. The guy pulls a Sig Sauer P320. That cold steel barrel finds her temple. Heals. A brand new point of pressure in this whole orchestra of pain. Heals. Elias cracks a smile, a real skull and crossbones grin. The code, Julian, or the little waitress who played hero, turns into a red stain on the concrete. Julian heaves against his chains, the metal screaming under the insane pressure. She's nothing, Heals. Just collateral damage. That's a lie. I saw the hotel security feed. The way you looked at her when she was patching you up. That's your weak spot. He nods. The mercenary cocks the hammer. A single sharp click slices through the room. Heals. 10 seconds, Julian, Elias announces. 1. Don't you dare, Julian, Elena yells, tears pouring down her face, but her voice is solid steel. Don't you give him a thing. Heals. The second he gets what he wants, we're both dead. He just needs you alive to get we're ghosts. 2. Elias drones on. Stop talking, Elena. Julian groans, his voice shredded and raw. 3. Elena locks eyes with the mercenary. Heals. Big dude. Chewing gum. His whole world is narrowed down to Elias, just waiting for the signal, completely ignoring the woman he's about to execute. Her hands are still tied, but she's not anchored to anything. She can move. 4. Heals. She forces her breathing to steady, creating a tiny pocket of calm in the middle of this hurricane. She starts taking inventory. His stance is wide, but his weight's on his back foot. The floor's wet. Elias is a few feet away, leaning on that cane. Heals. 5. The first word is vengeance. Julian roars. Elias's smile gets even bigger as he lowers his tablet. Good boy. What's next? No, Elena screams. And then she's just a blur of motion. She doesn't wait for 6. Heals. She launches herself backward. Not some trained move, just pure desperate physics. Her tied-up fists slam into the mercenary's crotch with the force of a sledgehammer. The dude folds with this disgusting noise, the gun dipping for 1 critical second. Heals. As he's staggering, Elena rolls, sweeping his ankles with her legs. His balance, already shot, just gives out completely. His head hits the concrete with a sound you can't unhear. The gun goes skittering off into the dark. Heals. What the? Elias spits out, whipping around. But Elena's already scrambling for the gun. Not to shoot it, she can't, but to get it off the board, kicking it deep into the shadows under a pile of old pallets. Get her. Elias barks at the other 2 goons. Heals. The cane, Julian bellows. The command hits Elena like a jolt of electricity. She doesn't think, she just does. Rolling onto her back, she kicks straight up. Her foot connects with Elias' cane, sending it flying through the air. With his support gone, Heals. Elias just crumples to the floor. Cut me down. Julian roars, his whole body shaking with the effort. Elena, the guard's belt. The knife. Heals. The guards were getting way too close. 30 feet. Then 20, right here. Elena flips the script from victim to survivor, scrambling over to the guy she just knocked out. Heals. She actually turns her back on the new threat, a major power move, while her fingers blindly search his belt for a knife sheath. She gets the blade. Now she's on her knees, going to town on the zip ties on her wrist, but the plastic won't give. 10 feet. Heals. A frustrated growl rips out of her as she saws harder, the steel biting into her own skin. Then, a sudden snap. She's free, but she doesn't get up. Nope. She lunges straight for Julian, heels, ignoring her own freedom to slice at the thick rope tying the hoist to the wall. The fibers shred, heels. The chain goes slack instantly. Julian drops 3 feet, his body absorbing the fall like a predator landing on its feet. His wrists are still cuffed, but he's not a piñata anymore. He's now a fighter holding 6 feet of hardened steel, heels. The first guard rushes in. Julian unleashes a spinning arc, the chain whistling through the air before it makes this sickening crunch against the guy's face. The man just drops, completely limp, heels. A roar tears out of Julian's throat, a sound that's pure pain and rage, nothing human left in it. He's running on pure adrenaline now. His injuries don't even matter. The second guard brings up his rifle. From the floor, heels. Elena grabs the fallen cane and hurls it like a last-ditch, perfectly aimed spear, heels. The hit to the guard's shins wasn't meant to take him out, just to throw him off. It created a split second of imbalance. That's all Julian needed. He exploded into that opening, the chain finding a new target around the guy's neck, applying one last, heels. Brutal squeeze. A horrible quiet falls over the room. The only sounds are heavy breathing and someone whimpering. Elias, looking absolutely terrified, is scrambling for the door. The chain makes a low, hungry sound as Julian closes the distance, heels, pinning his uncle's hand to the floor with his boot. The code, Julian's voice is like an echo from a grave. You want the code? Julian, please, we're family. The words just hang there, totally meaningless. The code is loyalty is the only currency, heels. He stared at Julian for a second. Then his eyes flicked to Elena. A silent order was given. Get the keys. Free me. He watches her hand shake, a tiny glitch in her programming, as she follows the order, heels, grabbing the key from Elias's pocket and unlocking Julian. The heavy cuffs hit the concrete with a loud clang. Free, Julian sways, trusting her completely to hold him up. We have to leave. The words are a dry whisper, and he's burning up with fever, heels. 5 minutes before backup arrives. They leave Elias on the cold floor, a problem for the syndicate to clean up, and melt into the foggy shipping yard, a maze of steel. Elena takes the lead, her eyes cutting through the haze. 2 patrols, she whispers, heels, pulling Julian behind a stack of shipping containers. We need a diversion. Her eyes land on a forklift nearby, a pallet of oil drums balanced on its forks, heels. She raises the weapon she picked up. Her target isn't a person, it's the forklift's exposed hydraulic line. 1 shot is all it takes. The hose blows, the forks crash down, heels, and the steel drums hit the concrete with a boom that sounds just like an explosion. While the guards are running toward the noise, Elena pulls Julian along. Now. They sprint across the open ground toward Terminal 4, heels. Julian's fingers fly over the keypad, typing a code that makes the heavy door slide open. Inside is a warehouse. It's the secret heart of the whole operation, a high-tech command center hidden in a hangar, heels, buzzing with servers and lined with racks of guns. And right in the middle, a black helicopter. Julian collapses into the main console chair, his fingers becoming a blur on the keyboard, heels. Activating Protocol 0, he says, his voice grim. Elias thinks he's taking over a kingdom. What I just did was burn the whole thing to the ground. The Thorn Syndicate's money lines are all cut, heels. Its assets bleeding out into 1,000 different charities and shell companies you can't trace. Elias is now the king of an empire of dust. Outside, tires scream. A jeep smashes through the hangar door, showering them with shrapnel. Mercenaries pour in, heels, trapping them in the glass server room. Julian slides a small velvet box across the console. Take this, he orders, pushing it toward her. It's a microdrive. My personal offshore accounts. He points to the back. There's scuba gear by the rear exit. Heels, go. Stop trying to plan my escape. Elena's voice is raw and angry as she rips an assault rifle right off its wall mount. Heels. We either walk out of here together or we die here together. I'm done with men picking my escape routes. Julian just stares at her, streaked with filth, fear making her hands shake. But her spine is pure iron. The Waitress act was over. Heels. An operator was standing right there. All right, he breathes out. He punches in one last command. The defense systems roar to life. Panels slide back and turrets drop down, unleashing hell with rubber bullets and tear gas on their attackers. Heels. Through the total chaos, Julian points at a heavy-duty truck. The Rhino, get in. Elena jumps in the driver's seat and twists the key. The V8 engine explodes. She smashes the truck straight through the back wall, landing hard on the loading dock. Heels. The truck skids on the wet concrete as she floors it toward the main gate. Heels. It's locked, she screams. Then go through it. Her jaw clenches as she slams the accelerator to the floor. The reinforced truck annihilates the chain link and steel gate like it was tissue paper, bursting out onto the street. Heels. Elena pilots the rig with a desperate, razor-sharp focus, dodging stunned traffic before veering onto a deserted forest road miles outside the city. The sound of a chase fades to nothing. Julian lets his head fall back against the seat, heels, the exhaustion hitting him like a physical blow. "We made it," he gasps. He reaches over, his hand covering hers on the wheel, feeling the slight tremor. "But I have nothing left, Elena. No money, no crew." Elena looks down at their hands, heels. "I'll be expecting a raise, and better benefits." The tiniest smile hits Julian's lips as his eyes close. Agreed. Elena watches the dawn start to light up the mountains, heels. She shoves the truck back into gear. She knew a place, a cabin completely off the grid where they could just disappear. The waitress was a role she played. The survivor was now at the wheel. The cabin was exactly as she remembered, heels. A forgotten hideout deep in the Olympic Peninsula, smelling of pine trees and damp earth. Dragging Julian inside was a serious effort, but for the next 3 days the world just melted away. All that was left was the sound of the rain, heels. The heat from a stove and the delirious guy on the cot. Elena became a medic, working with expired aspirin and strips of her old apron for bandages. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. She kept watch by the window, a Sig Sauer resting on her lap. Heels. On the 4th morning, his fever broke. Heels. Elena was heating a can of beans when a voice weak and broken came from the bedroom. "Smells like a bonfire." She was at the door in a split second. Julian was sitting up. He looked wrecked and pale, but his eyes were sharp. The fire in them was back. Heels. "You stayed," he said, his eyes tracing the exhaustion carved under her own. "I'm persistent," Elena shot back, the word a shield against her own massive wave of relief. "And I'm guarding my investment. You still owe me a pay increase." Heels. A dry laugh escapes him. "Sit down or everything." While he was out cold, the entire chessboard had been flipped. "Protocol 0 worked," he confirms. "I checked it on a burner phone. The Thorn Syndicate is shattered." Heels. Elias's fortune was vaporized, scattered across 1,000 different foundations. Heels. "The feds raided his estate yesterday. His reign is over, so it's done. We won." Julian confirms it with a nod. "But the Empire's gone too, as far as the world knows. I'm dead, Elena. I don't have an army. I don't control a city." Heels. "All I have is a microdrive with enough for a new start, but not enough for domination." He reaches for her hand, his fingers tangling with hers. "I have nothing left to offer you except myself." "I have no desire for a city," Elena says, her voice rock solid. Heels. "My entire life has been spent serving men who thought they owned pieces of the world. I don't want an emperor, Julian. I want an equal." She tightens her grip on his hand. "You once said loyalty is the only true currency. I am loaded with it. Are you?" Heels. Julian pulls her in, his gaze burning. "Elena, I would burn the world down all over again for this exact moment in this crappy cabin with you." Heels. The kiss that came next wasn't some romantic move. It was the desperate gasp of a man who'd been drowning. It tasted like wood smoke and just pure survival. For the first time, Elena wasn't working for anybody. She was exactly where she chose to be. Heels. 6 months later, the sun on the Amalfi coast is bathing the stone terrace of Il Rifugio in gold. The place is a whispered secret among Italy's elite, discreet, private, perfect. Elena moves through the tables in a simple white dress. Heels. Adjusting flowers on table 3. There is no apron. She walks straight to the back office. Julian is sitting at an olive wood desk, analyzing a digital ledger. He looks healthy, his tan hiding the faint scar on his shoulder. Heels. "The Marseille delivery is behind schedule," he says without even looking up.
"No, it is not," Elena corrects him from the doorway.
"I rerouted it through a private marina in Capri." The port inspector in Naples was starting to get way too greedy. Heels. Julian lifts his head at that, a slow grin spreading over his face. "You have a terrifying talent for illegal logistics, my dear." "It is just logistics," she smiles. "It's no different from seating a party of 12 that shows up with no reservation." Heels. "You just rearrange the pieces until they fit." Julian gets up, sliding his arms around her waist. "The Minister of Finance is coming tonight. He wants to discuss import duties." "I will handle him," Elena says. Heels. "I have experience with men who believe themselves to be important. I am well aware." Heels. Julian pressed his lips to her temple. "Are you happy, Elena? It's a quiet life, compared to the steakhouse." "It's not so still," she murmured, her eyes on the deep blue of the Tyrrhenian Sea. "They had safety, they had money, they had freedom." "Wait!" Heels. Julian said, pulling a small framed object from a drawer. It was a creased receipt forever stained by a single, dark drop of blood. Gunman behind you. Deal gone wrong. Exit now. He placed it on the desk. I had it framed. Heels. A reminder that the greatest deal of my life cost $68 and a generous tip. Elena's smile warmed the entire room. She took a pen and started to write on the glass. Heels. She circled the word exit, then drew a sharp arrow aimed right at Julian. She added one more word, never. After kissing him, she turned back toward the terrace. Back to it. Yes, ma'am, the man who once ruled the city's underworld said back. Heels. Elena stepped outside, breathing in the smell of lemon trees on the ocean breeze. She was done being a survivor. Now she wrote the menu. This chapter on Elena and Julian is closed. Heels. It started with one choice, a waitress catching a detail everyone else missed, and it ended in a partnership that took down a criminal empire. It's a clinical footnote that the most lethal weapon is rarely a gun. It's perception. Heels. The power to see the world not for what it pretends to be, but for what it actually is. Heels. She could have just watched. A ghost in the machine, happy to let the gears of murder grind to their end, and then fade back into her quiet little life. But she chose differently. The pen found its way into her hand. The ink bled onto the page. Heels. A deliberate circle that was less about saving someone else and more about violently creating herself. Now put yourself in the crushing silence of that choice. Weighed down by that same insane moment, what would you have done? Heels. Would you have passed on the warning, knowing your own shadow could become the hitman sent for you? Or would you have picked the simple comfort of just staying alive? Leave your own script in the comments. I am keen to see the scene you would build. Heels. If this breakdown of toxic loyalty and the birth of a criminal enterprise hit you, and if you want more deep dives into simple lives twisted into something terrible, signal your approval. It guarantees these stories are not lost to the void. Subscribe, Heels, and ring the bell. Heels, be here when the next file is opened.